I hope you are having a great morning. I have a feeling some of you might be popping over from the webinar that I just did on one of my other business pages, Clem & Co. If you are new to the Wild Clementine community or just haven't seen this face before, I'm Kate. I am a photographer based in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I have 3 businesses that I operate. The page that you are on is Wild Clementine, which focuses on travel, food and drink, and landscapes. So I am an avid traveler. I am a lover of this earth, and I love to share tips on great travel practices, places to go, things to do, people to see, places to eat. I take a lot of landscape photography while I travel, and then I also work with the food and beverage industry, providing them with photo support. So this Wild Clementine is kind of the smallest of my 3 business babies, and it is my passion project. It lights me up. This provides me a space to just share what really brings me joy in the world as far as traveling, being eco-friendly, and that kind of thing. So many of you know that I've got a little bit of a crunchy side. I wouldn't say a total eco nut, but there are a lot of practices that I bring into my life and my family's life to be more eco-friendly. I've found that this is important. I started realizing it was important as a kid. My mom and I would take walks around the neighborhood, and either I would be in the stroller or outside of the stroller walking with her, and we would actually pick up trash along the neighborhood. If somebody had like dropped a can out their window or that kind of thing, we would pick that up and we'd put it in the recycling. And those are some of the earliest stories that I know from my childhood about caring about the environment. My parents were also really conscious of bringing me to national parks for travel. I think my first or second trip was to Yellowstone, and we were tent camping. I remember having cold pizza as one of our breakfasts, and I have an aversion to cold pizza ever since then. But they were very much, they're alive and well, outdoorsy people. And I've always known that the outdoors and the planet is something that is worth protecting. When I was in 4th grade, I started reading about, drilling in the Arctic refuge and saving wild horses. When I was in 5th grade, I sent a petition to President Bush about not drilling in the Arctic refuge. And it's something that I've known in my heart is important to me. So as I've grown as an adult, there are different areas of my life that I strive to be more eco-friendly and just conscious of what I'm putting out into the world, whether that's energy, whether that's words, whether that's love, and whether it's actual physical things like trash, what I'm growing in my garden, that kind of thing. So I have a list here in front of me that I'm going to reference, that these are some of the things that we either currently do, actually I think all of them we do, or we are planning to take on this year. Each year I kind of make a personal commitment to some area of being eco-friendly that I can take on. In 2017, it was reducing my plastic bag use, which we carry reusable bags in all of our cars. We have them in our house. And if we do happen to use plastic bags, we are recycling them. We're lucky enough that we live by a Festival Foods grocery store, and they have a really great plastic bag recycling program that then turns them into park benches. So we roll up every couple weeks, actually probably a couple months, and we've just got a big bag of plastic bags that we've collected, whether it's like a bread bag, grocery bag, that kind of thing. You can look up what they recycle, but that was our practice for 2018. Last year it was reducing my straw usage, so we got some, I forget what they're called, Wonder Straw, I can't remember. It's one of the ones that folds down into a little carry case, and of course it's lime green because that's my favorite color. So we have 2 of those, that kind of thing. This year, it is exploring how we can be more eco-friendly with the foods that we're eating, specifically around eating a little bit less meat or catching our own food and hunting and that kind of thing. So that's our goal for this year. But I digress. So the list that I have in front of me, these are all things that I think are attainable by just about everyone. Easy fixes, that kind of thing. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to how I have these ordered on the list, so I'm just going to share them anyway. The first one that I've already alluded to, is investing in reusable straws. So I have one of the collapsible straws that I carry in my purse. I got one for Andy too. He doesn't have a purse, so I usually end up carrying two. But I also use them in our home as well. Sometimes if I've got like a reusable water bottle, which is also on the list, in the summertime, I like to have cold water in there or cold drinks, but I have really sensitive teeth. So what I do is I just stick one of the reusable metal straws that have like a silicone tip on them, because again, baby teeth, and I sip from those all day. We got some for Christmas from my mother-in-law, and I think we have a collection of about 14 of them now, and Andy thinks that it's excessive, and I think that it's wonderful and extra, and we're embracing it. So investing in reusable straws. A second one that I already mentioned, using reusable bags, whether you keep them in your car, you keep them in your pantry, someplace that is going to remind you to use them when you go shopping. I bring them into Menards, I will bring them to the mall, I bring them grocery shopping. I got no shame in my reusable bag game because it's a little thing that I can do. And they make some really cute ones. My mother-in-law got me a bag from, I think it was World Market, a couple Christmases ago. And it's like my go-to. It's got a cute design on it. It's like a woven straw-ish tote bag looking thing. And it's awesome. We have these great reusable tote, almost boxes, that we use when we're grocery shopping, and they are miracle little things. They hold so many more groceries than just the standard bags do. So they're great. We love reusable bags, and almost all like grocery stores, even Menards sells reusable bags, but I know Festival sells them. They're everywhere. Aldi sells them. I think TJ Maxx sells them. They range in price. Like I think our tote boxes are maybe $8 each. The bags are usually between like $1 and $4 each. But they're also great for like going to the beach. We use them when we're going up north. We'll throw in like the dog toys and the dog food into one of those because they kind of take up less space than the big actual plastic tote bins. So using reusable bags. Eco-friendly driving. So this is something that Andy and I currently practice in one way that we're going to be growing later this year. Andy takes my car during the week because he has about a 32-minute commute one way, so an hour commute to work and back during the day. I work from home, obviously. Welcome to my home. So I am not driving as much, and if I am, it's typically just around town, a quick meeting, that kind of thing. So I have a little sedan that gets much better gas mileage than Andy's truck. We don't really have qualms about the fact that Andy's driving a car and I look like a badass in the truck. I'm totally fine with that. But we also communicate about if I have a day full of meetings and I'm going to be driving around, or if I need to go down to like Appleton, or if I'm going to Milwaukee or that kind of thing, then I simply take the car. So we are conscious of that when it comes to eco-friendly driving. And then later this year, I am planning on getting a new car, and I'm looking into getting a hybrid car. I know that's not an option for everyone, but that's just one way that we're taking it to the next level. But that is something that you can explore with your significant other if you have that option. Otherwise, there's always public transportation, riding your bike to work, walking, riding your bike for errands, that kind of thing. If you can carpool with somebody, Andy has some coworkers that live in this area. Christy, I see that you guys do the same thing. That's awesome. It's such an easy fix. Unless you have a really specific attachment to your car, which when I get my new car, Andy is not touching that thing, and that will be mine during the week. But any ways that you can reduce your carbon footprint and the amount of fossil fuels that we're using, kind of get creative with how you can do some eco-friendly driving. Next up, I would say would be rain barrels. Now this one you have to check with your municipality if they're legal. I know that in some states out west, rain barrels are illegal because of the amount of droughts that they have. They need water to go back into the watershed, that kind of thing. Here in Green Bay, last time I had checked, rain barrels are legal. So we have a 2 rain barrel system that just hooks up to our downspout. This one requires a crafty friend or a really great instruction manual if you buy one from, I think Home Depot sells them, Menards sells them. But we have a 2 barrel system that hooks up in our backyard because that's where we have our garden. And that thing stays full so much because, well, here in Wisconsin, we have had such a rainy season, but that's what we use to water our garden, water our plants. So then we don't have to pull from city water and that kind of thing. And it's water that already was going into the ground and the watershed, and our grass is still healthy. So that's one way that we kind of conserve water and save that. Another option, this is more inside the home, would be closing your blinds in the summer and opening your blinds in the winter. So what I mean by this is you'll have to know which way your house faces. For us, our home faces the south. So in the summer, there is a bit of heat that comes from that side of the house. So we always close the curtains to keep it a little bit cooler in there. Also, it's just me at home during the day, so I stay in my 2-window office here that has great light anyway. But we close the curtains to keep some of that heat out. Therefore, our AC isn't running as hard. And then in the winter, the sun, so let's say this is our house. In the winter, the sun is at a little bit lower angle, so those rays can get into the windows easier. We have the blinds wide open. We actually have a black front door that reflects a ton of heat. And there are times when it can be like 10 degrees outside, and I open that door at just the right angle, and the sun is hitting that black and then reflecting back into our home. And our living room will honestly be like 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the rest of the house, just because we're letting in that natural heat and that natural light. We do the same thing in our bedroom. We have 2 windows in there. We just bust those windows, the blinds wide open, and that gives us some natural heat in there. We also run a little bit warmer, I think, than most natural human beings. So our thermostat stays at, the highest it is 65 degrees. The room that I am in, my office is in, it's a corner room. It's the coldest room in the house. So I have a space heater that I bring in here for chilly months. But then at night, we turn it down to about 60 degrees. And we just have it on a schedule that helps keep the house regulated. So that is another tip, would be closing your blinds in summer, opening them up in winter, depending on which way your house faces. This one, I have a feeling that a lot of people take advantage of this one, but donating used clothing, dishes, household items, that kind of thing. If you have a pair of jeans or some clothing that's gently used and you don't know what to do with it anymore, you don't use it, donate it. There are so many people that would be grateful for clean clothing, gently used items, dishes, that kind of thing. Oftentimes things get put in trash that could be put to good use. Also, if you go on Pinterest, there are so many great DIY ideas for, turning your pair of pants into a purse, or turning a teacup into a succulent planter and that kind of thing. A lot of reuse options. I was watching a documentary a couple weeks ago, it was a podcast from REI, and they said that while recycling is such an important part of the reduce, reuse, recycle triangle, reuse is actually the most important one, because that reduces so much waste that we're putting out into the world. This is another great one to look at what your municipality accepts for trash and that kind of thing, what to recycle, because there are items like porcelain dishes that people think that, it's kind of like a glass-ish product, so I can just put that in recycling. If it's broken, it actually goes in the garbage. But looking at those items that you don't use in your household, donating them when possible, and looking at what your city and municipality accepts as far as recycling or trashing those items. Next on my list would be composting. This one can be a little bit controversial because there are specific ways to compost that actually, some ways increase the amount of methane that is released into the atmosphere when the pieces in organic matter are breaking down, and some of them have less methane production to them. So I am not fully educated on that topic. My best friend, Erin, who lives down in Austin, which is a somewhat crunchy community, they get into some really great debates on composting. So if anybody has links to great composting articles or know-how on that, please feel free to drop it in the comments. But we choose to compost because it puts less food waste into the landfill, and we also garden. So that gives us some clean fill and really, really great, it's not always organic, but really great, I'm going to call it organic matter that we put into our gardens, and our plants just flourish with that. So we put in food scraps. We put in grass clippings, leaves, torn up pieces of cardboard and paper, because that really helps absorb some of that moisture, making sure that you're getting really robust compost material. We have a actual fenced in area in the corner of our yard that we do all of our composting in. And then we just have a bin under our kitchen sink. Coffee grounds are really great in there. We have bamboo coffee filters that we put into that help absorb some of that moisture that comes from breaking down plant material. Again, I am not an expert on this, and I will admit that the way that we compost is possibly contributing to some of the methane output, but I'm just going to sleep a little bit better at night knowing that I'm putting less food waste into the landfills. Next up is don't run the water while you brush your teeth. I'm just going to get in a soapbox here real quick. There ain't no damn reason for you to be running that water while you are brushing your teeth. You are not putting your toothbrush under it. You're not putting your mouth under it. Your dog doesn't need it running. Turn it off. Whether it's, I'm not sure where this starts from, but turn the water off while you brush your teeth. It is a simple way to save just a little bit of water. Just do it. Just tell me you're going to start it right now and just do it. Just do it. Next would be recycle. Of course, we have heard since we were this tall, reduce, reuse, recycle, but there are so many things that we can recycle that people put in the trash. And there are so many things that cannot be recycled that get put in the recycling. And that can contaminate a whole load of recycling if there are items in there that cannot be recycled, like plastic bags. Yeah, Christy, I do agree. It's better to compost than put it in the trash or down the sink. So I'm sleeping good on that one. Things like plastic bags from the grocery store and that kind of a thing. Many municipalities, or at least here in Green Bay, we are not able to put that in our single stream recycling bin because they get caught up in the machines, they can gum it up, and they just don't accept it. Things like tissue paper and store receipts, because of their composition, those are not recyclable. So the Brown County Recycling Center, they have really, really great resources online as far as finding out what can be recycled, what can't. But there are so many things that can be recycled, as far as like fruit containers from the store, like that our blueberries come in, or bunches of kiwis and that kind of thing. Plastic bottles with the caps on, milk jugs, cans that maybe you had black beans in there, or green beans, or that kind of thing, just standard aluminum cans that we take the tops off of, that kind of thing. Those are all recyclable. And some of those items are really hard to break down in a standard landfill. Plastic bags, I'm going to butcher the stat on it. I want to say it's like 500 years or something like that before they break down, or maybe it's 100 years, I'm not sure. But they don't break down in a landfill. So really they're just sitting there. Some of that stuff might be leaching into the watershed. It's just contributing to the amount of space that we then need for our landfills that kind of stink up that area. Anybody that drives from Green Bay to Appleton knows about that, just south of Kaukauna. That is a stanky mess. So really, I invite you to look at what your municipality allows as far as recycling. This is something that I continue to grow with too, because there can be procedures that change, and new items that they are accepting, new items that they're not accepting. So just check that out. My parents actually have the what to recycle, what not to recycle list just right on their fridge. And it's really kind of an eye-opening experience sometimes. Next would be bamboo toothbrushes, or some sort of a recyclable toothbrush. The one that I currently use is made from recycled yogurt cups, and then you can send it back in and they recycle it. But toothbrushes are actually one of the items that is most often found washed up on beaches in the Pacific, where they have those islands of plastic just floating out there. So toothbrushes, and again, plastic straws. But there are many options in the stores. Even Festival has bamboo toothbrushes and the yogurt cup toothbrushes and all natural toothbrushes. Unless you're somebody that needs, like an electric toothbrush, that kind of a thing, these are a really great option. And I think that the yogurt cup toothbrush that I have was maybe $2, that kind of thing. And, depending on how many times you switch it out throughout the year, the difference of, $3 to $4, that kind of a thing, it's an expense that I'm willing to share, willing to take on. So that's just a small one. Next, I would recommend planting plants in your yard rather than grass. A lot of times planting actual flowers, shrubs, trees, this can be beneficial for so many reasons. One, having actual plants with longer root structures, that helps with erosion. This is really great for people that live in dry areas like Arizona or Colorado. Even putting in succulents and that kind of a thing, that can help hold in some of that kind of sandy dirt. It's also really great planting actual plants and things that flower, because that really helps our bee population and that gives them some food, especially in urban settings. It also provides us less mowing space, less lawn to mow. When we have plants, it provides us with so much beauty, so many smells. You can go out there and clip your own flowers and have fresh flowers on the table. Yes, it is more expensive than grass, and I realize that. So that might not be an option for everyone. But even just, a couple corners of your yard, that kind of a thing, really looking into what is native in your area. There are a lot of non-native species that are beautiful, but a lot of the native species are going to be so great for the, yes, Christy, we can hang out and be hippies together forever. A lot of native plants that are great for the birds and butterflies and bees. Andy actually wants to do some beekeeping, but I think that'll be a project for when we get a little bit more land. Another way that having plants rather than grass can be beneficial is actually in an urban setting. Now, I realize that with like a true city like Chicago or New York, a lot of times there isn't much green space as is. But having plants around, that helps put more oxygen into the air, that helps actually break down some of the contaminants in the air in these cities that are really heavy with car emissions and that kind of a thing. They're also really great for rooftop gardens. So having a space on top of a large building where it's just open and flat and the sun is reflecting all of that heat, actually putting a rooftop garden helps reduce the heating or cooling of the building, helps reduce the amount of heat that the building is then reflecting into the atmosphere. And again, it helps clean up the atmosphere too. So that's on a bigger scale of if you have your own office building that you have access to the rooftop and you can just make it be a wonderful garden wonderland. But planting plants rather than grass, or surrounding yourself with plants to help regulate temperatures, clean up the air, and just really feel good. There have been studies that have proven that by surrounding yourself with plants, you are happier. And this is the one room in the house where I can monitor what the cats are and are not eating as far as my plants go. So it is a plant haven for me. And there are so many great options as far as plants that are available to you, whether that's Home Depot or Walmart or something like that, or talking to your local florist. A lot of times even florists will have potted plants, that kind of thing, that you can bring home. It's not just your standard cut flowers and here's the flowers for your anniversary. So find somebody local that you can work with too, because there are so many great options for that. Next up, I kind of alluded to this before, would be gardening if possible. So we have a couple raised bed gardens in our yard, and we produce a fair amount of our own produce during the year, mostly vegetables. We don't have a ton of fruits that we're currently growing. We have an apple tree that's surviving, making its way through the winter. But I was watching Cowspiracy a few weeks ago, which I'm going to allude to on a later point. And on, I think it was roughly like a 5x5 square foot area, maybe it was a 6x6 square foot area in an urban garden, a man was able to produce over 100 pounds of vegetables, I believe it was. And actually, I'll dive into this in a different point. But with gardening, you're able to produce your own food, which then reduces the amount of travel costs, shipping that are associated with produce and vegetables. You're able to control what is seasonally available to you. That's where a lot of like pesticides can come in, and again, the travel and shipping costs for us to get fresh broccoli here in Wisconsin when everything is snow covered and that kind of thing. Or shop local if you can. There are a lot of great producers specifically in the Green Bay area that either do like hydroponic growing, so they have greenhouses that can then produce throughout the year. shopping your local farmers market in the summer. We have, I think it's the second busiest farmers market in the state, right here in Green Bay. It's beautiful. So getting your produce with someone local, not only are you supporting, a friend in the neighborhood, but then there's also less gas used to get that to you. Gardening is also great for, obviously getting you outside, getting your hands in the dirt and that kind of thing, but that's how we use our compost dirt. That's kind of why we do that, is it goes twofold there. We're working on our gardening practices. We are really great at growing potatoes and tomatoes and cucumbers and things that we don't always intend to grow. But we really like that option, just be able to go outside and have that fresh for us. Second to last point, I would say invest in a reusable water bottle. We have so many of these. I use this to track how much water I'm drinking during the day. This thing is awesome. Obviously, it's a Yeti brand. Currently, I have some hot tea in here. It stays warm throughout the day. But as many reusable bottles as you can bring. I brought that to Jamaica last week, and my studio manager and associate photographer, Krista, was like, I should have remembered to bring that, because at a setting like that, they give you a ton of drinks in many, many different cups. And plastic cups that get thrown out or paper cups that get thrown out. And this, I was able to have water with me all throughout the day. We were at an all-inclusive, so for one of the days, I just had them put like a really big helping of one type of drink in there, and it stayed cold. And that's what I sipped on for like 6 hours. And that was definitely all I needed. But they're so versatile. You can put hot drinks in there. Like I said, I have tea in there right now. And just being able to reduce the amount of plastic bottles that we're putting out there. The thing with plastic bottles, like, Ice Mountain or Dasani or just those standard plastic bottle packs, is one, a lot of times they are using virgin plastic. And what that means is plastics that are being created for the first time. They aren't made from recycled products. Plastics are made from oil, essentially. So when we produce that, again, we're having to tap into the earth, pull those resources. And then when we're using really kind of cheap virgin plastic, that's an opportunity for a lot more contaminants to then be ingested by us and kind of sitting in our bodies. They're also, sometimes pretty flimsy. They kind of break down, and they don't have a super long shelf life. So even if you get, a standard plastic bottle and you refill it a couple of times, it doesn't have the same shelf life as, this Yeti that will hopefully last me forever and that kind of thing. And we have so many of those sitting around for either, a Starbucks run or local coffee shop run, or filling up while we're hiking if we're not using a Camelback and that kind of thing. We are obsessed with our reusable bottles. And there are so many different styles and colors and options. There are the ones that like break down and compact for travel and that kind of thing. If you have a favorite reusable water bottle brand, go ahead and drop it in the comments for me, because I am always looking for more. I don't think a girl can have too many reusable water bottles. All right, and then the last one that I have that is kind of our personal initiative for 2020 is eating less animal products. And this is something that is just coming into light more recently in the news, and it's a very, very controversial topic. And I'm aware of that, and I am just sharing that it is one way that is proven to help reduce the amount of impact that we put on this planet. There is a great documentary called Cowspiracy. It's on Netflix. And I'll be the first to say I am not vegan. I am not vegetarian. I am exploring ways that I can reduce the amount of animal products that I am taking in. But it is something that is not talked about enough in our society, because it is proven through many, many different studies, different activists, that huge study that was released by the 11,000 scientists at the end of 2019. The agricultural business has the largest effect on the climate, more than fossil fuels, because of the amount of space that it takes up for the animals to live and be grown, essentially, the amount of water that it requires for nourishing the animals, creating the products themselves. the amount of methane that the animals are releasing into the air through poop. And there was another point that I was going to make with that, and now I forgot. But, you know, many of the Amazonian the rainforest, oh my gosh, words are hard. Most of the reason that it's being cut down is for agriculture, to make room for grazing and cattle. And it's not necessarily for paper products. So there is a lot that gets essentially covered up when it comes to what effects are being made on the planet and where they come from. And this comes from essentially special interest groups and their kind of connections with the government. Without diving into too much, you know, conspiracy theory here and that kind of thing, I realize that we are here in Wisconsin, which is very agricultural heavy, and that, you know, a lot of our friends and family, that is their business. And again, I'm just approaching this from a way that we can be more eco-friendly in our lives. So if that is an option that resonates with you, perfect. You know, in this documentary, Cowspiracy, they talked about how a vegan can produce all of the food that they need, essentially, if we were all producing our own food, on, I believe, either a sixth or an eighth of an acre. And then a vegetarian can produce, for a year. A vegetarian who eats somewhat animal products, the amount of space that they would take up to have this happen is like half an acre or an acre. And then somebody who eats, you know, the standard American amount of animal products with some fruits or vegetables, they take up 3 acres of space. And I think that was like a 2-person family, that kind of a stat. So I recommend, you know, watching Cowspiracy, reading some of the recent releases from, you know, the large environmental groups and that kind of a thing, and just having a little bit more education on that. If that's something that you're like, wow, I didn't know that, or I don't think that's right, just go ahead and dig into some of the resources that are out there, see what's a good fit for you. For us, we're working on consuming less beef, and which is just great for your health anyway. Less beef, less pork, a little bit less chicken. We are working on getting as much of our meat as we can through like venison. If we do get meat, we want to get it from a local producer and an organic producer. Unfortunately, grass-fed beef actually contributes to some of the global warming and that kind of thing a little bit more than just standard industrial farm because of the amount of space that it takes up. But there are less methane emissions when we have more space and fewer animals on that property rather than an industrial farm where they're all together and we have the manure leaks and that kind of a thing. I mean, we see this in Northeast Wisconsin a lot, where there was a manure spillage here and it's affecting the watershed here, and somebody was improperly capturing their methane and that kind of a thing. So again, I know that might be an option that doesn't resonate with everyone here, but studies have shown that it is the #1 thing that we can do to make a difference on the planet, beyond even reducing our plastic bag use or reducing our water emissions. 660 gallons of water is what it takes to produce 1 hamburger patty, because of the amount of water that the cow is fed and everything through the rest of the processing. 660 gallons for 1 hamburger. And think of the amount of showers shortened or skipped that would add up to. It's a pretty startling amount. So I highly recommend checking out Cowspiracy, any of the other options available as far as environmental studies. And I will say that on, you know, both sides of the spectrum, there can be a lot of fake news that's out there. So just check the source that you're reading. Have it be something reputable, peer-reviewed, that kind of a thing. Because no matter what side of the line that you're on, there's not always factual information being put out there. So to run back down the list again of ways to be eco-friendly in home and life, in no particular order: investing in reusable straws, using reusable bags, practicing eco-friendly driving, using rain barrels if it is legal in your area, closing your blinds in the summer and opening them in the winter, donating used clothing, dishes, and household items, composting, not running the water while you're brushing your teeth, recycling and knowing what your local municipalities allow as far as recycling or what needs to go into the trash. Using a bamboo toothbrush, planting plants rather than grass, or bringing plants into your home and your urban setting. Gardening, using a reusable water bottle, and eating less animal products. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, you want to start a conversation on some of those ideas, I would love to chat with you further. We always lead our conversations with kindness and openness. So just, I invite you to take on that stance as well, because I know that sometimes these can be a little bit more controversial ideas, but I have a feeling if you're following along here, you're also on a kind of a crunchy path like I am too. So I appreciate you being here, you taking the time to think about the ways that you can make your life and your home a little bit more eco-friendly and kind to our earth. If you have any ideas that I did not mention on my list, I'm always looking for ways to grow this. So I would love to know, please feel free to share them with me. Drop me a comment, send me a message, and I look forward to connecting with you guys. All right, I will talk to you soon. Have an awesome day. Thank you.